Subscribe to the MTL World at Malworld 1 YouTube channel. Novel, Night Without Boundaries. Chapter 141, An Unexpected and Astonishing Harvest. Author, Chen Dong. Translator, Shadow Knight AK. Editor, Shadow Knight AK. Under the pitch-black night sky, the vast plains were densely forested. A weasel, half the height of a man, stood blocking Qin Ming's path, its yellow fur gleaming like silk. Clad in azure gold armor and a helmet, with faint lightning arcs crackling around its body, it exuded an air of extraordinary presence. "Why are you blocking my way?" Qin Ming asked. "Young man, you're too reckless," the weasel replied with an air of seniority. "You slaughtered all the able-bodied wolves of Wolf Ridge, and now you feign ignorance. What's it to you?" Qin Ming asked coldly. The slender weasel stood its ground. "As fellow wolves, they all called me Uncle Huang. What do you think?" Qin Ming scrutinized the creature, confirming it was a weasel, not a wolf. "If you miss your nephews so much, why don't you join them? A family reunion, all together. My name is Huang Yuan. I don't kill the nameless. Young man, I'll give you one chance to leave your name behind." The weasel slowly drew a black, long sword from its back. Compared to the weasel, the pitch-black blade was already quite long, nearly matching its height. "You yellow-skinned weasel, trying to act like a big, bad wolf." Qin Ming scoffed, but he didn't dare let his guard down. He could genuinely sense a palpable danger radiating from the creature. He drew his sword, his gaze fixed on the weasel before him. "In recent years, I've seen many young faces, even more radical than yours, brimming with youthful fervor. They charged into this land of divine lament, seeking to slay demons and protect the border people." Huang Yuan's golden armor clanked as it adjusted its helmet with its small paws, straightening it. Then, its paws glowed as it gripped the black blade, pointing it at its opponent. Qin Ming froze. This vibrant, life-filled plain was actually called the Land of Divine Lament. It must be connected to godlike beings. Huang Yuan spoke calmly, "And guess what happened to those hot-blooded youths? They all died. I even have a collection, segments of finger bones from their middle fingers." It tapped the bone necklace hanging from its chest with the hilt of its blade. "They say the 10 fingers are connected to the heart. These are heart bones. I've already collected 35. With yours, I'll complete the 36 heavenly stars." Qin Ming realized the weasel was trying to provoke him, but its words had indeed ignited his killing intent. What it said was true, those were the finger bones of young humans. He didn't act rashly. Though newly awakener, he had retained fragments of his consciousness, spiritual light and divine wisdom. His instincts were now exceptionally sharp. Qin Ming sensed 2 more creatures lurking in the shadows, patiently awaiting their chance to coordinate with the weasel for a fatal strike. He couldn't help but sigh. Even a weasel understood strategy, attempting to provoke him while preparing a coordinated ambush with hidden allies for a perfect kill. Huang Yuan chuckled softly. "Sigh, there's nothing more satisfying than crushing hot-blooded young geniuses like you. It's like extinguishing the very fire of your entire race, severing your future." Qin Ming moved, discarding the mother blade of his twin swords and drawing the jade iron sword. He didn't immediately infuse it with heavenly light force, so the blade remained unlit. Lightning arcs crackled around the weasel as it summoned a raging wind. Gripping the sword's hilt, it seemed to ride the sword itself, rising from the ground with a thunderous roar and moving with blinding speed. Suddenly, Qin Ming stopped abruptly and charged swiftly backward. The jade iron sword erupted with blinding heavenly light, its pristine white body humming resonantly. Hidden within the dense forest were 2 humans, a man and a woman, positioned on opposite sides, coordinating with the weasel in a triangular formation to ambush him from the rear. Now, Qin Ming turned to confront the man, his body surging with the overlord wind force. Like a hurricane sweeping through the forest, he shattered every obstructing branch and splintered countless plants in his path. The sword's snow-white light flashed like a thunderclap through the forest as he slashed down at the man, who appeared to be around 30 years old. Undoubtedly an outer saint, the man's pupils contracted as he shouted, "Brother, don't misunderstand. We're on the same side." Yet his pitch-black spear thrust forward relentlessly. A moment's hesitation from his opponent would give him the advantage, enough to skewer the man with a single strike. Qin Ming's sword descended, cleaving the black spear in 2 with a clang. Without pausing, the jade iron sword in his hand erupted with heavenly light, blazing like a miniature sun. "You!" The outer saint panicked. It was the jade iron sword. He tried to dodge, but his speed was no match for Qin Ming's. He parried with his broken spear, but against the jade iron sword, it was like rotten wood, crumbling with a clang as it was sliced down to a mere foot in length. Qin Ming's final strike cleaved through the remaining spear fragment, severing the man's arm in a spray of blood. Before the man's scream could fully erupt, Qin Ming's sword split his body in 2. His heavenly light force offered no resistance, and he died instantly. Qin Ming whirled around as Huang Yuan, the weasel, arrived with astonishing speed. Crackling with lightning and riding a gale, it moved without touching the ground, truly appearing to ride its sword. Clang! Though Huang Yuan stood only waist high to an adult man, its strength was astonishing. Its clash with Qin Ming's sword produced a deafening metallic screech. The weasel's black, long sword suffered a deep gash, revealing its surprisingly durable material. Despite being struck by the jade iron sword, it hadn't snapped in two. This was the spoils the weasel had claimed after killing a young human genius. So powerful. It thought, genuinely shocked. How could a human of this age possibly withstand its attacks? The weasel was an ancient demon, having evolved over centuries. Even many outer saints among humans were no match for it had even enslaved two of them. Yet here was a newcomer, barely in his teens, trading blows with it head-on. In an instant, the pair exchanged dozens of strikes, sparks flying with each clash. Finally, a section of the weasel's black sword snapped off, the tip clattering to the ground. Panic surged through the weasel as it swiftly retreated, creating distance between them. Qin Ming, of course, pressed his advantage, relentlessly pursuing the weasel and engaging it in close combat. He was genuinely astonished. This weasel had mastered an incredibly powerful sword technique, its skill honed to an extraordinary degree, as if it had practiced for decades. It even possessed the bearing of a true master. In truth, the weasel was exceptionally talented. After just over a decade of training, it had already achieved the poise of a renowned expert, making it a true prodigy among aberrants. Yet the weasel was even more shaken. It was losing. In the land of divine lament, its bloodline had mutated, evolving into strands of strange, ethereal blood that granted it the equivalent of decades of additional cultivation. Yet it was still outmatched by a human teenager. The female outer saint repeatedly tried to intervene and assist Huang Yuan, but she couldn't keep up with the speed and was forced to retreat. Qin Ming and the weasel clashed swords relentlessly, showcasing their profound mastery of sword technique. They had already breached its azure gold armor, leaving two deep wounds on its body. Huang Yuan seethed with rage. It couldn't withstand the young man's attack. As a self-proclaimed master of sword technique, renowned across the plains, it was growing increasingly desperate. With a clang, its black, long sword snapped in two. The armor on its chest was cleaved open, the shattered plates revealing another deep, bloody gash. With a whoosh, it suddenly surged skyward, soaring into the night air. Earlier, it had been gliding on its sword, concealing a pair of fleshy wings that fluttered subtly behind it. Now, these wings fully unfurled, allowing it to hover aloft. Unbelievable. Master Huang, whose wind thunder sword shook the land of divine lament plains, defeated by a mere whelp. The weasel spat in fury. Qin Ming's face was cold. He was deeply dissatisfied with himself for having struggled so long against a mere weasel. It was utterly absurd. He didn't realize the true significance of this weasel, its reputation was indeed formidable. Ignoring the creature, Qin Ming turned and strode toward the woman, his sword held ready. She quickly spoke, "I was forced to help him. I've been enslaved by him for years. Thank you for rescuing me today. You don't seem confused or incoherent. You can communicate normally, yet you acted as his accomplice. How much of your own kind's blood have you spilled these past years?" Qin Ming demanded. "No, please. I was wrong." The woman panicked, her face paling. If even Master Huang couldn't match him, how could she possibly resist? Qin Ming showed no mercy. After several fierce clashes, he sliced off her head with a thud, blood gushing as her corpse collapsed to the ground. Huang Yuan, hovering in midair, was no ordinary weasel. He possessed the heavenly light force of humans, now fully withdrawn, as a radiant glow emanated from the space between his brows. He hadn't intervened earlier because he was transforming his power. Many have forgotten how I rose to prominence, Huang Yuan declared. As a weasel, he possessed a racial talent, an exceptionally powerful spiritual domain. It suppressed its heavenly light force, and a blinding consciousness spiritual light erupted from its forehead, as if distorting space. The towering tree canopy beside it shook violently before shattering into fragments. Diving down, it roared, "Those who rely on physical combat are inferior beings." Qin Ming wanted nothing more than to cleave it in two with his sword. This weasel dared to spout racial prejudice, as if it possessed some divine qi. As the so-called power of its spiritual domain cascaded down, the spiritual light materialized into a tangible sword and struck at Qin Ming. He clenched his fist and punched upward. Qin Ming's unified fist light blazed with blinding intensity, like a golden crow tearing through the night sky, incinerating all in its path. The so-called consciousness spiritual light instantly ignited. The materialized, spiritual blade, shattered, dissolving into flames. 5 consecutive strikes followed, each pierced by Qin Ming's terrifying heavenly light force, like a three-legged golden crow sweeping through the night, annihilating demons and monsters. Ah! Huang Yuan shrieked in agony, utterly bewildered. After transforming his power and unleashing his most powerful consciousness spiritual light, he had suffered an even more humiliating defeat. Blood gushed from his mouth and nostrils as he flapped his fleshy wings, desperately fleeing into the night sky, seeking escape. Qin Ming drew his bow and nocked an arrow, a jet-black jade iron arrow. His archery skills were renowned as peerless, rivaling even his sword technique. Already critically wounded, Huang Yuan had no chance to evade. With a piercing shriek, the heavenly light contained within the arrow's feathers blasted a bloody hole through its body, sending it plummeting to the ground. The heavenly light that pierced through its body had even torn one of its fleshy wings. Moving with the agility of a hunting leopard, Qinming closed the distance in an instant and stomped his foot onto Huang Yuan's body. His expression immediately shifted as he noticed Huang Yuan forcefully inhaling. With a swift strike, Qinming used the back of his jade iron sword to shatter one of Huang Yuan's legs. Don't release any foul gas, he threatened, pressing the blade against its neck. Or I'll immediately chop off your limbs. He had no desire to be covered in stench. What do you want? The weasel asked, its voice trembling. I'm very interested in your lightning-infused light and that sword technique, Qinming replied. Recite them for me. Release me first, Huang Yuan countered, attempting to negotiate. With a crack, Qinming shattered both of its arms with the jade iron sword. I surrender. Huang Yuan lowered its head and began reciting the flawed scripture. With a snap, 2 more bones in its body broke. Qinming said coldly, recite it again. Each time must be different. If you make a mistake, I'll break 2 more bones. Huang Yuan's emotions surged violently. The resentment, the recalled scriptures, and the vivid images they conjured all became crystal clear. Qinming was certain he had obtained the complete inheritance. The lightning radiance and sword technique he sought were both part of a single legacy, the Wind Thunder Sword, which required the Wind Thunder Force to activate. This secret manual had belonged to a young genius who had been murdered over a decade ago. Back then, the land of divine lament hadn't yet descended into such chaos. Huang Yuan had secretly assassinated the passionate young prodigy. Moreover, its claims were true. In recent years, it had slaughtered over 30 human prodigies. Qinming naturally wouldn't spare it. After obtaining this extraordinarily mysterious and formidable sword manual, he cleaved the weasel in 2 at the waist with a single stroke. You! It shrieked, its voice filled with terror, yet it clung to life. A purple haze emanated from its heart, surging toward the wound, accompanied by a fragrant aroma that filled the air. This is! Qinming exclaimed in astonishment. He decapitated the weasel, ensuring it had no chance of survival. Soon after, he discovered a purple heart within its corpse, containing an extraordinary blood. Could this be the special aberrant mentioned in the life-altering scripture? One that has evolved, miraculous blood, capable of prolonging life and enhancing innate talent. This weasel is truly astonishing. Qinming stared in disbelief. A mere weasel had actually given birth to extraordinary blood. If it was recorded in the life-altering scripture, it was clearly no ordinary creature. After careful examination, Qinming felt both joy and regret. The quantity of extraordinary blood was limited, indicating the weasel was still in its growth phase. Had it accumulated this blood for another few decades or centuries, transforming its entire body into extraordinary blood, it would have been priceless. Based on the life-altering scripture's records, Qinming estimated that even this amount of blood could extend his lifespan by 10 years and strengthen his foundation. This was even more precious than spiritual substance capable of granting awakening. After all, this blood enhanced potential, while spiritual substance merely helped manifest existing potential. Qinming utilized techniques recorded in the life-altering scripture to unleash heavenly light, refining the extraordinary blood. This process caused wisps of purple mist to evaporate, revealing the extraordinary medicine contained within the blood. In an instant, the area filled with swirling purple mist and an intoxicating medicinal fragrance, completely enveloping him. After purifying the mist dozens of times with heavenly light, Qinming absorbed the vaporous purple clouds into his body. Immediately, he felt his entire being lighten, his flesh and blood surging with vitality. The effects are this pronounced. He marveled, realizing the extraordinary medicine could indeed extend lifespan and transform flesh, blood, and bone, just as he had sensed. This extraordinary blood left him utterly astonished. Qinming carefully examined himself, confirming that his foundation had indeed deepened, though he couldn't quantify the extent of the improvement. On his way back, he had already begun practicing the techniques from the secret manual. The Wind Thunder Force not only possessed immense offensive power but also granted a significant boost to speed. The value of this sword manual far exceeded his initial expectations. Qinming suspected it must be a forbidden technique from a great sect. He continued to swing his sword, gradually producing the sounds of wind and thunder. The lightning radiance he had long yearned for flickered into existence. Qinming no longer wanted to leave. The land of divine lament was brimming with opportunities, and he hoped to encounter more, Master Huang's. The gains from this encounter had already left him immensely satisfied. Blank. End of chapter. Subscribe to the MTL World at Malworld 1 YouTube channel. Novel, Night Without Boundaries. Chapter 142, Hell Level Difficulty. Author, Chen Dong. Translator, Shadow Knight AK. Editor, Shadow Knight AK. The land of divine lament plains boasted fertile soil. A single shovel strike might unearth wisps of crimson fire spring, capable of nourishing all life. Therefore, even shrouded in dense night mist, the vast plains teemed with lush vegetation and abundant wildlife. Young man, you're finally back. The villagers of Luo family village swarmed Qinming, their earlier anxiety replaced by eager anticipation. Rest assured, the wolf problem has been eliminated, Qinming reassured them. Young man, you're truly our savior. Someone choked out, their eyes reddening. The families who had lost children wept openly, young and old alike. The village's newborns were utterly helpless against wolf monsters of that level. In recent days, they had lived in constant fear and tension, each day feeling like a year. Unable to refuse their heartfelt hospitality, Qinming stayed for lunch and used the opportunity to inquire about the Silver Wolf King from the old village chief. He felt that eliminating this mastermind was crucial to prevent future calamities. It resides in the Wolf Hall, commanding over 100 wolf monsters, the chief explained. Qinming pondered, resolving to strike secretly when the opportunity arose. He suspected that the Silver Wolf King might be one of the failed transformation silver creatures Zhou Dao had mentioned, its residual silver blood possessing immense value. At noon, when the night's darkness had slightly receded, Qinming arrived at Lu family village, a neighboring settlement. They too had reported a bloody incident some time ago. The village was brightly lit, thanks to a second-tier fire spring, a resource sufficient to support a town. Young man, did you come alone? The villagers of Lu family village looked at Qinming's youthful appearance with disappointment. Could he have offended someone and been sent here as punishment? Qinming produced a string of wolf teeth. Immediately, the old village chief of Lu family village perked up, his voice trembling with excitement. Young man, you're so capable. You've already dealt with the wolf problem in the neighboring village. Without wasting time, the chief quickly explained the details. A bird demon had been appearing intermittently, having devoured 4 people so far. It's utterly savage. Lu Dazhuang had already undergone his second awakening, but when that bird demon swooped down, one swipe of its claw tore open his skull right at his doorstep. It leisurely sucked out his brain before devouring most of his flesh. The old village chief estimated that the bird demon had likely committed similar atrocities elsewhere, rather than specifically targeting their village. Otherwise, the situation would have been far worse. Do you know where its nest is? Qinming asked, unwilling to wait any longer. He wanted to take the initiative and search for it himself. Every day of delay could cost another life. It should be in the dense forest about 10 miles away. The old village chief pointed a trembling finger toward the ancient woods in the distance. Upon hearing this, Qinming immediately set out. An hour later, he discovered the bird demon described in the records within the dense forest. It stood 5 meters tall, its feathers a mottled gray-black, with a human-like face and a beak as sharp as a curved blade. Moreover, it was a pair of bird demons nesting in an ancient tree, having already laid 5 speckled eggs. If these eggs hatched, the young birds would undoubtedly wreak even greater havoc. Moments later, Qinming drew his bow, nocked an arrow, and shot one bird demon dead, severely wounding the other. He left the wounded one alive to interrogate it about their motives. He learned that the 2 bird demons had been unable to survive on the land of Divine Lament Plains and had come to the outskirts to breed and raise their young. They were, in fact, discarded weaklings. Qinming crushed the wounded bird demon with a single palm strike. Then, with a surge of fist energy, he blasted the nest apart, scattering egg yolk in all directions. This marked Qinming's first true extermination mission. Regardless of age or innocence, he left no survivors. Without pausing, Qinming resolved the problems of 4 villages in a single day. The only remaining settlement under his jurisdiction was Stone Fortress Village, where the massacre was the most complex. This involved an old demon with profound cultivation, rumored to have lived for at least 100 years. After learning the details, Qinming's expression turned grave. The villagers of Stone Fortress Village wore gloomy faces, sighing and lamenting, for this old demon had a connection to their village. Is there more to this story? Qinming pressed earnestly. It's an old donkey that left our village, one villager explained. They say an old donkey returned to the mountains 100 years ago, and grew more monstrous with age, eventually fleeing deep into the land of Divine Lament Plains. 100 years ago, this old donkey had been enslaved in Stone Fortress Village, toiling tirelessly day after day. Eventually, it underwent a mutation, rose to prominence in the land of Divine Lament Plains, and returned to seek vengeance. 2 years ago, it had already tormented over a dozen people to death, all descendants of its former master. Though it rarely visits the village now, it has abducted many villagers to serve it on Jilei Mountain. Qinming listened intently, captivated by the tale of an old donkey seeking revenge after 100 years. Most importantly, the donkey had 3 sworn brothers, the Silver Wolf King, a giant beast, and a terrifying black pung. Qinming's expression grew solemn. 100-years-old demon was already cause for concern, and the Silver Wolf King had put him on high alert. Now, 2 more monstrous entities had been drawn into the fray. Killing any one of them could provoke the wrath of the remaining 3 old demons. Qinming, who always overestimated his opponents, felt this challenge was of hellish difficulty. After careful assessment, he concluded that even a top-tier extraordinary prodigy who had undergone 9 awakenings would likely face a grim fate here. The only viable strategy would be to abandon the people of Stone Fortress Village, kill the old donkey, and flee immediately, leaving this place forever. But that wouldn't solve the problem, it would only trigger a greater bloodbath. The remaining 3 old demons would undoubtedly retaliate with savage fury, potentially slaughtering entire villages and towns. Were the blood cases Kui Chongshuan, Zhou Ya, and Cao Wuji faced this difficult too. Qinming suddenly realized that entering the 6 Imperial Mountain Gate might not be so easy after all. He refrained from rash action, knowing he had ample time. Elder Zhou Dao of the 6 Imperial Ancestral Court had given them half a month to return. Over the next 2 days, Qinming quietly infiltrated the land of Divine Lament Plains to gather intelligence on the 4 old demons. He cautiously approached their territories, seeking opportunities to strike. On Jilei Mountain, over 20 young men and women, dressed in tattered rags, were forced to wash clothes, cook meals, and prepare food for donkey demons, dog demons, rat demons, and others. The old donkey commanded dozens of subordinates. When it traveled, it was carried in a sedan chair by humans, sitting upright with its donkey face stretched long, radiating an air of false dignity. Wolf Hall, though not particularly large, was surprisingly majestic. Constructed primarily from red crystal stone found on the land of Divine Lament Plains, its crimson facade glowed like blood under the reflection of the fire spring. Even from a distance, Qinming could tell with a fleeting glance that the Silver Wolf King was even more formidable than Master Huang, a truly formidable foe. Most importantly, it commanded over 100 subordinates, all towering wolf-like monsters. Qinming was most eager to target the Silver Wolf King because, among the 4 old demons, it appeared to be the weakest. The giant beast and Black Pung were undoubtedly the strongest. Moreover, if the Silver Wolf King was a silver creature that had failed its transformation, the residual silver blood within its body could grant Qinming's 7th awakening. If he could break through again, his strength would surge to new heights, perhaps enabling him to eliminate all 4 old demons. Qinming stared hungrily at Wolf Hall, but he knew that unless he could strike decisively in a single blow, he would be in grave danger. After all, the territories of the 4 old demons were not far apart. As Qinming roamed the land of Divine Lament Plains, he encountered numerous monsters and human adventurers. He tried inviting others to join him in exterminating the demons, but the moment they heard who he intended to target, they immediately refused. That monster probably possesses extraordinary blood. Qinming had observed the giant beast multiple times. Its entire body was covered in fiery red scales, and it wasn't the legendary, mountain-sized strange beast. Though slightly larger than an elephant, it was still considered a colossal creature by ordinary humans, especially in the outer regions of the land of Divine Lament Plains. The next day, Qinming saw the Black Pung, its body radiating dark light and widely regarded as the most terrifying creature in the area, fly away from its mountain lair and head deeper into the land of Divine Lament Plains. His spirits surged. This seemed like the perfect opportunity. The giant beast must be feeding right now, he thought. He traversed the forest, approaching the giant beast's habitat. The creature resembled a fiery lion draped in crimson scales. Flames billowed from its mouth and nostrils as it devoured various mutant creatures, including mutated elephants. The scene was gruesome. The giant beast sat there, tearing into an elephant leg with its massive claws, blood staining the ground crimson. It's eaten half an elephant. Given its habits, it'll likely sleep for half a day. This is a chance I can't afford to miss. Qinming vanished, swiftly arriving at the Wolf Hall. This time, he would give it his all, aiming for a single, decisive strike. Under the cover of night, Qinming drew his jade iron sword, patiently awaiting the optimal moment. The Wolf Hall, constructed primarily from red crystal stone, stood majestic and towering, its blood-red hue radiating an oppressive aura. Half an hour later, the Silver Wolf King emerged from its lair after devouring fresh flesh. It stood upright, towering at 4 meters tall, its silver fur shimmering brilliantly under the moonlight, making it a striking figure. Qinming fired 4 jade iron arrows, not waiting to see if they hit their mark. Gripping his jade iron sword, he charged forward with the speed of a gale. The Silver Wolf King grunted, 2 arrows piercing its flesh. Though it avoided vital spots, crimson blossom stained its silver fur. Enraged, it threw back its head to unleash a howl. With a flick of his wrist, Qinming hurled another jade iron arrow straight into the wolf's gaping maw. The Silver Wolf King snapped its jaws shut and jerked its head aside to dodge. Boom! A dazzling blade light erupted as Qinming closed the distance, engaging the Silver Wolf King in a life-or-death struggle. In that fleeting moment, their attacks clashed fiercely. The Silver Wolf King's massive claws were sheared bare, dripping with blood as if its nails had been clipped too short. Yet it managed to wrench free its wolf-tooth mace. Its claws glowed as it hefted the heavy weapon, unleashing a relentless barrage of strikes. Qinming's expression turned grim. This was indeed a formidable foe, far more dangerous than he'd anticipated. He channeled every ounce of his strength into the battle, his heavenly light force burning like wildfire. Though Qinming landed a deep slash, the Silver Wolf King refused to fall, its resilience astonishing. Thwack! Qin held nothing back, unleashing his most powerful techniques. He slashed another wound across the Silver Wolf King's neck, nearly severing its throat. Startled and enraged, the Silver Wolf King roared repeatedly, its silver fur glowing intensely as it fought desperately. Many wolf monsters rushed to its aid, but none could withstand Qin terrifying sword. Clear the way. A cold voice echoed from midair, and the wolf monsters retreated like a receding tide. Brother, you've finally arrived. I never thought anyone would dare attack us. The Silver Wolf King shouted out, relieved to see its savior. Qin heart sank. Glancing upward, he saw a massive raptor resembling a black sun, radiating dark light with terrifying ferocity. Its wings beat, emitting powerful energy waves. The ground trembled as a colossal beast with crimson scales emerged nearby, resembling a lion with blood dripping from its fangs, its tusks protruding in a savage, menacing grin. On the other side, the old donkey appeared, its fur gleaming as it was carried in a sedan chair. It lifted the curtain and cast a cold, sinister gaze at Qin. Qin sighed. He had never imagined the worst-case scenario would come to pass. 4 old demons, each more ruthless than the last, had converged to trap him within the wolf hall. This was the most dangerous situation Qin had faced ever since embarking on the path of awakening, a trial of hell-level difficulty. Blank. End of chapter. Subscribe to the MTL World at Malworld 1 YouTube channel. Novel. Night Without Boundaries. Chapter 143, Bloodshed. Author, Chen Dong. Translator, Shadow Knight AK. Editor, Shadow Knight AK. Awoo. Under the cloak of night, wolf howls echoed through the dense fog as packs of wolf demons closed in, their eerie green eyes encircling the area. Outside the wolf hall, Qin stood motionless, sword in hand. He was completely surrounded by dangerous creatures, truly trapped with no escape. Not even the skies offered any chance of escape, as the formidable black pung loomed overhead. Who betrayed me? Qin demanded, a surge of intense emotion churning within his chest. The 4 old demons had clearly anticipated his arrival. Had he been betrayed? Or had some unforeseen flaw in his plan allowed the old demons to set this deadly trap in advance? The 4-meter-tall Silver Wolf King, its snow-white fur gleaming like moonlight, gripped its wolf-tooth club and bared its fangs, snarling, "It's better you die in ignorance. You dared to strike me twice today. Thinking you deserve to know why. Dream on. I'll make sure you suffer until your last breath." The giant beast, covered in crimson scales, spoke, "Fourth brother, you're pathetic. You were critically wounded in mere moments. If we'd arrived any later, your wolf hall would have been wiped off the map. Second brother Fire Scale Lion, this youth is extremely formidable," the Silver Wolf King warned, blood still dripping from his neck and chest. "Be careful." The giant beast's lineage was extraordinary, its veins carrying a trace of the Fire Qilin's true blood. Among the 4 old demons, it ranked second in power. Qin frowned. Could this be where I die today? Even after giving his all, he hadn't managed to kill the 4th-ranked Silver Wolf King. The remaining 3 old demons would only be stronger. "Little whelp, weren't you the one who killed one of my little brothers a few days ago?" The old donkey spoke, sitting in its sedan chair with a stern, donkey-like expression. The 4 grotesque creatures carrying the sedan chair, a pig demon, a dog demon, a sheep demon, and a rat demon, formed a group that looked anything but benevolent. "I've never killed a donkey," Qin retorted, his eyes scanning the terrain, analyzing the power disparity between the enemy and himself, and calculating the best escape route. "Impudence! How dare you disrespect Master Lu?" The dog demon carrying the sedan chair shouted. The old donkey stepped down from the sedan chair, standing upright at nearly 4 meters tall. Dressed in silk and brocade, it resembled an old wealthy merchant if one ignored its pitch-black donkey face. In a cold voice, it declared, "My little brother was Master Huang." With that, it lunged forward, launching its attack. "Third brother, watch out for his sword," the Silver Wolf King shouted. The old donkey was a formidable opponent. Its 4-meter-tall frame exuded immense pressure, and its skills were astonishing. As it charged forward, the ground trembled, sending sand and stones flying in a whirlwind of black mist, like a great demon crossing the land, its aura overwhelming. Qin dared not let his guard down for a moment, maintaining razor-sharp focus. In an instant, the jade iron sword in his hand erupted with dazzling light, cleaving through the dense black mist as he engaged the old donkey in close combat. The old donkey boxing technique was truly remarkable, unleashing sonic booms with each strike. Towering above, it rained down thunderous hoof fists, each blow shattering the sound barrier, its hooves enveloped in white mist. The old donkey official robes billowed wildly as it moved with lightning speed. Its footwork was equally terrifying, each kick carrying lethal force. With a thunderous crash, its hooves shattered the ground with every strike. A master of boxing, the old donkey shared a deep respect for Master Huang, the weasel sword master. Now, it rained down left and right punches, eager to pulverize the human youth into a bloody pulp. In an instant, the old donkey retreated rapidly. It wasn't outmatched, its cultivation was profound, and its heavenly light force was terrifying. The problem was Qin Ming, who had broken through its demonic aura and fist strikes, using his jade iron sword to counterattack and trim its hooves. The old donkey lowered its head to examine its front hooves. Each had been reduced by more than half, with over a dozen pieces sliced off by the human youth's sword, leaving them nearly bald. Some wolf demons wanted to laugh but restrained themselves. Bring me my gauntlets. The old donkey growled. As the one directly involved, it maintained a stern, formal demeanor, as if it had never smiled in its life. The dog demon immediately stepped forward to help it put on the special metal gauntlets, forged with a small amount of jade iron. The fire-scale lion spoke up, "Your donkey stubbornness is truly infuriating. We're here to kill, not spar. Why did you engage him alone?" The old donkey, ever receptive to advice, immediately replied, "Second brother is right. Let's attack together and eliminate him quickly. This human youth is only in his teens, yet he possesses such power without even reaching the outer saint realm. It's the most extraordinary thing I've ever witnessed." Qin Ming's expression grew grave. If the donkey demon had worn his alloy gauntlets earlier, they would have been evenly matched. It was clear that the fire-scale lion and Black Pung were even more formidable, likely beyond his capabilities. Now that all four old demons were attacking simultaneously, his chances of survival were slim. In an instant, Qin Ming moved, lunging toward the Silver Wolf King, who had already suffered 2 deep wounds from his earlier strikes. The snow-bright sword in his hand gleamed with a chilling light. A thunderous roar split the air as the Black Pung descended with the force of lightning, its wings crackling with explosive energy. Though not particularly massive, about 10 meters long, its aura was utterly terrifying. The Black Pung resembled a burning black sun, radiating astonishing energy waves. It struck with lightning speed, its claws distorting space and shattering the night mist. Even with the jade iron sword, Qin Ming didn't dare meet the creature head-on, instead dodging swiftly to the side. The Black Pung's speed surpassed that of every other being present. When its claws missed, it seamlessly swept its dark wings in a counterattack. The nearly 10-meter-long wings glowed with a dark light, resembling burning black flames. The combined demonic aura, malevolent energy, and heavenly light radiating from its body formed a terrifying aura, even at a mere meter's distance. Qin Ming swung his jade iron sword, barely managing to cleave through the air. He was still a foot away from the Black Pung's wings when he felt as if he had sunk into quicksand. A terrifying surge of energy nearly ripped the sword from his grip. With a thunderous boom, the Black Pung's wings sent him flying sideways. The combined force of heavenly light and malevolent energy struck his body, nearly shattering his heavenly light force. Qin Ming was hurled over 20 meters, blood trickling from the corner of his mouth as he crashed to the ground. He staggered to his feet, barely managing to stay upright. In midair, the Black Pung stood upright, its wings spread horizontally like arms. Its entire body seethed with intense dark light and malevolent energy, resembling a raging black inferno. Qin Ming's ordeal had only just begun. The moment he landed, the fire-scale lion charged toward him. Its earth-shattering momentum shook the ground as it trampled stone and earth. The lion-like creature was clad in crimson armor that shimmered with fiery light. Larger than even a giant elephant, it moved with astonishing speed. Qin Ming dodged repeatedly, but despite its mountainous size, the fire-scale lion was remarkably agile. It tracked his movements relentlessly, its gaping maw spewing torrents of fire and heavenly light that surged forward like tidal waves. Gritting his teeth, Qin Ming channeled his wind force, swiftly moving to the lion's flank. He swung his jade iron sword. The fire-scale lion, with its wide jaws and sharp fangs, shook its fiery mane. Its crimson armor clanked as demonic aura and heavenly light erupted, bathing the surroundings in a dazzling red glow. With a cold sneer, it braced itself to withstand Qin Ming's strike. Qin Ming's expression grew grave. His sword, though cleaving through the dense red glow and flames, lost its momentum the moment it touched the lion's scales, its power completely dissipated. Amidst the clang of metal and showering sparks, he failed to breach the crimson armor. With a thunderous roar, the fire-scale lion swung its massive, red-hot claw, as large as a winnowing basket, down upon Qin Ming. Even an elephant would have been crushed by such a blow. Left with no room to evade, Qin Ming channeled his heavenly light force once more, slashing forward with his long sword. Though he managed to block the claw, the force of the impact sent him flying backward over 10 meters. Qin Ming knew all too well that the fire-scale lion's strength far surpassed his own. As he crashed to the ground, the old donkey charged forward, launching a flurry of punches. Simultaneously, the Black Pung swooped down, unleashing an endless torrent of dark light. The malevolent energy and heavenly light fused into a destructive force that shattered rocks, split the earth, and obliterated everything in its path. The old donkey retreated, clearing the way for the Black Pung. Qin Ming faced a life-or-death crisis. In that moment, his 3 great extraordinary techniques and 18 perfected forms of heavenly light force merged into one, his body resonating with a thunderous roar as it erupted in a brilliant, sacred light. Yet even with the heavenly light force infused throughout his body using the Silk Book's technique, unleashing his ultimate technique, he was still blasted away by the Black Pung, coughing up mouthfuls of blood. His jade iron sword pierced through the dark light and slashed at the Peng's wings, but only a few dark feathers drifted down, failing to penetrate its flesh. The heavenly light and malevolent energy radiating from the black Peng extended barely a meter, yet their density was terrifying, far surpassing anything Qin Ming had witnessed from the outer saints. Roar. A lion's roar shook the heavens, sending sand and stones flying. The fire-scale lion arrived, its massive claws crashing down. Despite Qin Ming's desperate resistance, he couldn't withstand the onslaught. Blood streamed from his mouth and nostrils as he was hurled backward. Even his merged heavenly light force, which had enveloped his body, flickered and dimmed, nearly dissipating entirely under the overwhelming force. The fire-scale lion glanced at the crimson scales cleaved open by the jade iron sword, drawing a trickle of blood, but the wound was far from reaching bone or tendon. When Qin Ming crashed to the ground from a height of over 10 meters, it wasn't just the old donkey charging in this time. The heavily wounded Silver Wolf King also lumbered forward, brandishing his wolf-tooth club and swinging the massive weapon down with brutal force. Unable to rise in time, Qin Ming swiftly rolled aside. The wolf-tooth club slammed into the ground beside his ear, shattering earth and stone and leaving a deep crater. The old donkey leapt into the air, this time unleashing a four-legged fist technique, each hoof striking downward with crushing force. Qin Ming rolled again, narrowly evading the four heavy hoof fists, finally finding an opportunity to stand. However, the most formidable enemy, the Black Peng, reappeared. Its wings remained motionless, as if it could hover effortlessly in midair. A claw shot out, unleashing a burst of dark light. Qin Ming's sword failed to cleave through all the dark light projectiles from the Peng's claw, and his protective heavenly light barrier couldn't fully block them either. With a soft thud sound, blood blossomed on his arm and chest, each marked by a bloody hole, narrowly missing vital organs. The fire-scale lion followed up with a sweeping strike of its massive, platter-sized paw, wreathed in roaring flames and surging crimson light. Unable to evade, Qin Ming gripped his sword with both hands, channeling heavenly light force to meet the fire-scale lion's attack head-on. With a deafening crash, he was slammed downward, the ground collapsing beneath him before shattering outward. Simultaneously, the Silver Wolf King swung its wolf-tooth club, while the old donkey kicked out with its hind legs, its hooves aimed at Qin Ming's back. The Black Peng, too massive to join the fire-scale lion's simultaneous attack, hovered in the air, its cold, lightning eyes piercing down from above. Qin Ming was violently slammed into the crater by the fire-scale lion's massive claws, engulfed in flames and heavenly light. With a thud, the Silver Wolf King's wolf-tooth club swept across, striking his chest. Had the fire-scale lion's massive claws not been pinning him down, the blow would have crushed his skull. Qin Ming coughed up a mouthful of blood, the heavenly light around him flickering dangerously. He barely withstood the impact, as the fire-scale lion's claws tightened, threatening to crush him outright. He desperately swung his jade iron sword in defense, his chest burning with agony. The heavenly light around him shattered in places, and a wolf tooth from the club pierced his flesh, breaking off inside. This was no ordinary weapon, it was a true wolf tooth club. The massive iron club was embedded with fangs shed by the Silver Wolf King over years of cultivation. He had once nearly achieved silver creature status, enjoying a period of glory before ultimately failing in his final transformation. Qin Ming took a deep breath, having never suffered such a devastating blow. A wolf fang was lodged in his chest, and he had just been blasted by the fire-scale lion. Simultaneously, a searing pain shot through his back as the old donkey kicked him twice, fracturing 2 ribs on his left side. Roar. The fire-scale lion let out a low growl, a mocking grin spreading across its face. It was clear the beast hadn't yet unleashed its full power. Now, it swung its massive claw with savage force. With a thunderous crash, the ground shattered as Qin Ming, drenched in blood, was slammed into the earth. His heavenly light force dissipated. Yet he swiftly reignited his heavenly light, bursting back to his feet. The second terrifying lion claw didn't miss its mark. It swept horizontally, crushing into him. Bang! Qin Ming was critically injured, suffering at least 4 fractures, his left arm and 3 ribs on his left side. He spat out a mouthful of blood as he crashed to the ground some distance away. The Silver Wolf King grinned savagely, hefting his wolf-tooth club and advancing relentlessly despite his own injuries. The old donkey, his face cold and impassive, moved forward, determined to avenge his little brother Xuanhuan. Qin Ming struggled to his feet, rising with desperate urgency. He still had one last resort, one he had been saving for Black Peng. Without it, even if he managed to break through the encirclement, he would never outrun the creature. If he failed to kill or wound Black Peng, his death today was certain. Qin Ming stood drenched in blood, surrounded by 4 old demons. Black Peng descended like a setting sun, its dark light radiating outward, a terrifying protective aura that no outsider could penetrate. It was now dangerously close to Qin Ming, its razor-sharp claws reaching out to strike. Qin Ming took a deep breath, focusing his mind and body. Ignoring the cost, he channeled the fused heavenly light force, concentrating all his power into the jade iron sword. He braced himself for a final, desperate battle, ready to fight to the bitter end. Boom! As Black Pung closed in, the earth shattered, the scene apocalyptic. The dark light erupting from its body was overwhelming. Qinming struggled to evade the creature's claws, then mustered every ounce of strength to cleave through the dark light with the jade iron sword, aiming for its abdomen. Yet even with this desperate strike, he only managed to graze Black Pung's surface before the dark light halted his sword completely. Do you know what it means for an ant to try and shake a tree? Second brother Fire Scale Lion strode forward, his massive body causing the ground to tremble with each step. At that moment, Qinming felt a sense of relief. He had exhausted every ounce of his strength, cleaving through the Black Pung's protective dark light with his sword and finally making contact with its body. Drenched in blood, he endured immense pressure within the dark light, his bones creaking as if on the verge of shattering. The Black Pung crushed him with its malevolent energy and heavenly light, its cold gaze fixed downward in disdain. The heavenly light around Qinming's body had grown faint. Suddenly, a strange light erupted from within him, carrying a sword-shaped pendant of jade iron. It shot upward along the jade iron sword with incredible speed. The dark light in that area had already been dispersed by the jade iron sword's earlier vibrations. With a thud sound, the strange light propelled the thumb-sized, pristine white sword into the Black Pung's body, violently stirring within. Forged from exotic metal, a material found within the near-immortal treasure known as the 8 trigrams furnace, the small sword pierced through heavenly light, divine wisdom, and consciousness spiritual light. In an instant, the white sword shot out through the Black Pung's body. Though the strange light had dimmed, it still pierced the Fire Scale Lion's forehead, which was mere inches away. The sudden attack caught everyone off guard. No one had imagined that the dying Qinming could unleash such a ferocious strike. Ah! The Black Pung shrieked in agony, flapping its wings frantically as it soared into the night sky. With a thunderous roar, the Fire Scale Lion unleashed its full power, violently shaking off the pristine white sword. But the sword's blade was stained with brain matter. The Fire Scale Lion thrashed its head wildly, howling in pain as it retreated rapidly, clutching its skull with its massive claws. It too had been critically wounded. This ability had manifested during Qinming's 6th awakening. The radiant light was akin to his most powerful strike in peak condition, capable of detaching from his body and traveling several meters, unaffected by his weakened state. As the radiant light dimmed, Qinming used its final glimmer to retrieve the pristine white sword. He desperately wanted to press his advantage, but he knew his condition was too dire. Even with the Fire Scale Lion severely wounded, he lacked the strength to finish it off. Clutching the silver sword, Qinming charged toward the old donkey, who turned tail and fled in terror. If this sword could critically wound both of its sworn brothers, how could it not fear? Qinming ignored it, swinging his sword at the Silver Wolf King. You. After several clashes, both figures, already heavily wounded, staggered back and forth. Finally, Qinming decapitated the Silver Wolf King. Despair and resentment filled its eyes as they dimmed. Qinming cleaved open the wolf's body, revealing a silver heart that reeked of blood but also emitted a faint, sweet fragrance. He seized the heart and sprinted away. Awoo! The wolf demons, ordered to retreat, howled and charged after Qinming, but they couldn't stop him. Third brother, go kill him. That human boy is at his limit. Black Pung staggered to the ground, his internal organs severely damaged and in need of time to recover. Old donkey, hurry! The Fire Scale Lion roared, his head throbbing violently, preventing him from moving rashly. Qinming fled desperately across the Great Plain of Divine Lament. Blank. End of chapter. Subscribe to the MTL World at Malworld 1 YouTube channel. Novel. Night Without Boundaries. Chapter 144, Chaos. Author, Chen Dong. Translator, Shadow Knight AK. Editor, Shadow Knight AK. Under the cloak of night on the land of Divine Lament Plains, Qinming was in a desperate escape for his life. The old donkey commanded its demonic horde, wolf demons, sheep demons, rat demons, and more, to encircle and intercept him. Every creature was mobilized, and the dog demon was dispatched to deliver messages. The old donkey itself joined the hunt, tearing off its tattered official's robe and abandoning its upright posture. It dropped to all fours, its pitch-black donkey face grim, and galloped wildly after Qinming. Remarkably unscathed, the old donkey retained its full combat prowess. Only its hooves, trimmed by Qinming's jade iron sword during their earlier clash, showed any sign of damage. At this stage, among the 4 old demons, only the old donkey posed a truly lethal threat to Qinming. Qinming stumbled through the forest, his body drenched in blood and multiple bones broken, the most severe injuries he had sustained since embarking on the path of awakening. Under normal circumstances, the old donkey should have overtaken him long ago. Yet the pursuit grew increasingly difficult for the donkey. Qinming's jade iron sword had left its hooves uneven and jagged, making its gait unstable. One of its front hooves was nearly severed, while the hoof on its right hind leg remained completely intact, untouched by the sword. This unevenness caused the donkey to stumble repeatedly, nearly twisting its ankle several times. Its donkey face stretched long and dark, so black it seemed to drip with ink. Even so, it was closing in. As it neared the tattered, blood-soaked figure ahead, it surged forward with renewed ferocity. Suddenly, Qinming whirled around, brandishing his sword and charging straight at it. In that instant, the old donkey froze, its hooves skidding to a halt. The sight of the human youth's jade-white sword flashing again sent its donkey fur bristling in terror. It had witnessed firsthand the gruesome fates of Black Pung and the fire-scale lion, and the memory still haunted it. Qinming feigned a throw, raising his hand as if to hurl the sword. The old donkey panicked, instantly performing a donkey roll, abandoning all pretense of dignity. When it looked up again, the human youth had already fled. Feeling mocked and humiliated, it resumed its relentless pursuit. As it closed in a second time, Qinming once again turned and raised the sword. Yet, despite its initial fury, the old donkey cowered again. This pattern repeated itself. By the fifth time, convinced that Qinming was truly at his limit and could no longer unleash that deadly strike, the old donkey reared up on its hind legs, charging with murderous intent to crush the faltering human youth with a fatal kick. This time, Qinming poured his heavenly light into the small sword without reservation, causing it to blaze with light for a split second before he hurled it at close range. With a thud, the sword pierced through the old donkey flank, narrowly missing its vital organs. A bloody hole appeared, the sword exiting the other side. The wound stirred painful memories of the donkey past, years of servitude before its eventual rise to freedom. Naturally cautious by nature, it whirled around and fled. Qinming retrieved the exotic metal sword and leaned against an ancient tree, struggling to stay upright. Blood streamed from his mouth and nostrils, his injuries were severe. As he gasped for breath, his chest heaved violently. The broken ribs pierced his internal organs, sending cold sweat pouring down his face. He endured the agony and forced the bones back into place. If the fractured ribs had remained lodged in his organs, his situation would have been far worse. Qinming couldn't afford to linger. He pressed onward through the dense forest. He needed to find a secluded spot to refine the silver heart. He couldn't achieve a breakthrough in the heat of battle. Awakening was a gradual process, requiring a day or two. Here. A bird shrieked from the sky. Thud. The bird exploded into a bloody mist, shot down by Qinming with an ordinary iron arrow. His situation was dire. The old donkey had issued orders, mobilizing every creature that flew in the sky or ran on the ground, birds of prey and strange beasts alike. This territory fell under the dominion of the four old demons, and the bird demons and beast monsters dared not disobey. A 5-meter-long fire bat flapped its blood-red leathery wings as it approached. Though not as powerful as the four old demons, it was still at the outer saint level, posing a significant threat to the increasingly weakened Qinming. Qinming took a deep breath, adjusted his stance, and drew his bow again. This time, he deliberately feigned weakness, the iron arrow flying with diminished force. The fire bat remained cautious, refusing to close the distance. Instead, it opened its maw and unleashed a blinding crimson beam of intense heat, instantly incinerating the massive tree Qinming had been leaning against. Qinming dodged awkwardly, having conserved his heavenly light for defense. As a result, a strand of his hair caught fire, which he swiftly severed with a palm strike. The fire bat closed the gap, its demonic blood-red wings beating furiously. It greedily sniffed the air, catching the scent of the Silver Wolf King's heart. Flames erupted from its mouth in relentless bursts. Qinming drew his bow once more, this time knocking a jade iron arrow. With a desperate surge of strength, he fired. The arrow struck the fire bat's head with a thud, and the heavenly light force exploded outward. The headless bat corpse plummeted to the ground, snapping thick tree branches as it fell. A towering ancient tree suddenly shattered, and a massive bear materialized silently, ambushing Qinming. Its massive paw struck down, shattering the tree trunk he had been leaning against. Weak and unsteady, Qinming stumbled sideways, narrowly dodging the blow. The bear roared and lunged at him. This massive creature posed a serious threat to Qinming in his current state, clearly possessing outer saint-level strength. The forest around them was being ravaged. Blood-red light radiated from the bear's body, its ferocity intensifying as it tore through the dense foliage, threatening to level the area. After a fierce struggle, Qinming leapt forward, plunging his sword into the bear's skull. With a thunderous crash, the massive corpse collapsed to the ground. Qinming collapsed as well, drenched in bear blood, too exhausted to move. Despite his exhaustion, he forced himself to his feet. More monsters were approaching. Clearly, he wouldn't find a quiet place to refine the silver wolf heart anytime soon. He sat down where he was, first circulating the Wuxia scripture to absorb a small amount of earth essence and replenish his strength. Then, clutching the silver light-infused heart, he took a direct gulp of the silvery blood. According to the life-altering scripture, silver blood should be refined with heavenly light through repeated purification until its medicinal properties transform into ethereal clouds, nourishing the flesh and blood. But Qinming had no time for such meticulousness. After swallowing the silver blood, his stomach felt like it was on fire, as if being pierced from within. As expected, his crude method had backfired. The life-altering scripture's extraction method was correct, but the wolf blood's composition was far too complex. Even in this era, he should have sought an alchemist to refine the silver blood's essence instead of gulping it down in such large quantities. Qin Ming's abdomen was racked with excruciating pain, as if being torn apart. He felt like his intestines were about to rupture, and he desperately wanted to writhe on the ground in agony. The Silver Wolf King had once possessed boundless potential and rapid growth, but its failed transformation into a silver creature had halted its cultivation. Beyond producing silver blood, the process had also generated harmful byproducts. Qin Ming was drenched in sweat, but even more alarming, wisps of blood seeped from his pores. Only after a long, agonizing wait did the excruciating pain gradually subside. Qin Ming was surrounded by pairs of greedy eyes, all belonging to mutants. However, the sight of the massive bear carcass and the nearby fire bat with its head exploded deterred them from attacking immediately. After enduring the ordeal, Qin Ming felt a surge of vitality within him. The beneficial silver blood he had absorbed was rejuvenating his body, improving his condition. At the very least, he no longer felt so weak. Qin Ming leapt to his feet, wielding the jade iron sword like lightning as he charged forward. With a series of thwacks, he swiftly slaughtered 6 mutant creatures, including 2 outer saint-level creatures. The area erupted into chaos, with beast monsters, bird demons, and other creatures scattering in panic. This brief flurry of activity left Qin Ming feeling exhausted again. He desperately needed rest, but the surviving old demons wouldn't grant him the time. Drawing on his extensive wilderness survival skills, he quickly identified several plants, crushed their leaves, and smeared the juice over his body to mask his scent. Unfortunately, the silver wolf heart proved difficult to conceal. No matter what he tried, its faint, alluring fragrance persisted. As Qin Ming fled, he found himself constantly discovered by monsters. Fortunately, the mouthful of silver wolf blood was still working, his body burning hot and his vitality growing stronger. Qin Ming knew he wouldn't find a quiet place to rest. Given the circumstances, he might as well refine the silver wolf heart directly. After recovering slightly, he activated the heavenly light force, unleashing a brilliant light that enveloped the priceless wolf heart, continuously refining it. Silver mist billowed, luminous vapors swirled, and a unique medicinal fragrance wafted out, utterly irresistible, especially to aberrant creatures. For them, the allure was practically fatal. Hordes of beast monsters reappeared. Even though Qin Ming used the heavenly light to bind the silver wolf heart, trapping as much of the luminous mist and medicinal fragrance as possible around himself, wisps still leaked out. He couldn't afford to worry about that now. Once the refinement of the silver blood began, he had no intention of stopping. Battles were inevitable along the way, and he slaughtered his way through them. The old donkey also appeared twice. When it saw him refining the silver wolf heart, even it couldn't help but swallow hard. It led a pack of demons to besiege Qin Ming, but the old donkey wasn't at its peak, its body still bearing a bloody wound. Wary of Qin Ming, it hesitated, acting cautiously. Moreover, it noticed that Qin Ming's condition was steadily improving. Finally, the old donkey decisively sent a message to the Outer Realm, summoning allies and issuing a kill order to eliminate the human youth. The so-called Outer Realm referred to the territories beyond the domains of the 4 old demons. Under normal circumstances, other mutant creatures of comparable power would not dare to cross these borders without invitation. Now, the old donkey had broken this precedent by actively inviting them. In an instant, Qin Ming found himself in mortal danger once again. Qin Ming had previously lingered in this territory, avoiding long journeys, primarily out of fear of encountering unknown and formidable demons and monsters from other realms. After all, with the 4 old demons of this territory wounded and weakened, it had seemed relatively safe. But when the old donkey began summoning demons, everything changed. Carried by swift birds, news of the situation spread almost instantly, reaching the powerful creatures of neighboring realms. Though the silver wolf failed in its transformation, traces of silver blood still remain in its heart. This revelation stirred some astonishingly powerful old demons. Even if their own cultivation was too advanced to benefit from the heart, they could bestow it upon their descendants. Qin Ming fled once more. His condition had improved significantly, but the monsters he encountered grew increasingly formidable. He was currently being hunted by a massive black elephant, an old demon that had crossed over from a neighboring realm. Its colossal size and power rivaled those of the Silver Wolf King. Still not fully recovered, Qin Ming found himself on the defensive against the behemoth. Each thunderous step of the elephant's massive legs shook the earth, and its trunk lashed out, shattering ancient trees. Twice, Qin Ming narrowly avoided being crushed beneath its massive feet. The black elephant radiated heavenly light from every pore, its immense form posing a lethal threat to Qin Ming in his current state. During the relentless pursuit, Qin Ming seized a critical opportunity. Drawing his jade iron arrow, he bent his bow and shot, piercing the elephant's eyeball. The creature roared in agony, nearly collapsing to the ground. While the jade iron arrow could pierce heavenly light, it lacked the devastating force of exotic metal. What a waste, another jade iron arrow lost. I wonder if I'll ever recover it, Qin Ming muttered, not pausing to linger. He turned and fled. His anger flared as he continued his escape. Human adventurers from the land of divine lament plains, having heard the news, had arrived, not to help, but to hunt him down. Their eyes fixed on the silver wolf heart in his hand, their faces twisted with greed. In the dense jungle, Qinming decapitated a middle-aged man with a single strike of his sword and vanished without a trace. Brother, we're on the same side. I'm here to help. A young man emerged from the undergrowth, holding up his hands to show he meant no harm. But from behind Qinming, several cold arrows forged from secret gold shot forth, aimed at his head, back of the heart, and other vital points. His condition had improved significantly. The heavenly light within him gradually grew stronger, and his divine wisdom and consciousness spiritual light had accumulated, sharpening his instincts to an extraordinary degree. Qinming dodged the arrows, gripped his jade iron sword, and launched a counterattack. Moments later, 3 heads rolled to the ground as he drifted away. As time passed, Qinming gradually refined the essence of the silver wolf heart. The silver blood's composition was incredibly complex, containing spiritual substance that could trigger his 7th awakening and mysterious medicinal properties that could strengthen his foundation, a treasure beyond measure. The bad news was that the region had descended into chaos. Demons and monsters roamed freely, and human adventurers, driven by greed, were also on the hunt for Qinming. He took a deep breath and discarded the shriveled silver wolf heart. A silvery mist billowed around him, enveloping him in a luminous haze and filling the air with an intense medicinal fragrance. Qinming repeatedly purified himself before beginning the absorption process. Awakening was a gradual process, requiring a day or two, but from this moment onward, his body would steadily grow stronger. Blank. End of chapter. Subscribe to the MTL World at Malworld 1 YouTube channel. Novel, Night Without Boundaries. Chapter 145, From the Abyss to the Clouds. Author, Chen Dong. Translator, Shadow Knight AK. Editor, Shadow Knight AK. The Black Pung, its entire body seemingly forged from black gold, stood atop a great mountain, gazing down at the moonlit plains. It was healing its wounds, radiating astonishing energy fluctuations. Third brother, you're truly ruthless, summoning demons into our territory. The Black Pung growled, though it was relieved its rapid recovery had ensured its self-defense. Otherwise, it might have faced challenges from powerful outsiders. The old donkey quickly explained, eldest brother, I was terrified. He's transforming 4th brother's silver heart blood, he's bound to grow even stronger. The fire scale lion, more massive than an elephant, its crimson scales glowing with fiery light, was also healing. Flames engulfed its entire body as it occasionally let out a low, rumbling roar. Any other outer saint would have died from a skull fracture, but despite its agony and temporary madness, the fire scale lion was gradually recovering. The bloody hole in its skull was slowly closing. A small amount of extraordinary true blood glowed within its body, tracing its lineage back to the fire Kirin, a supreme species dwelling in the deepest reaches of the night mist world. The Black Pung said, since you've already summoned demons, I'll issue a kill order in my name. We'll rally more allies to encircle him, he must not escape the land of divine lament plains. Okay. The old donkey nodded immediately. Under the cloak of night, the land of divine lament plains echoed with the roars of beasts. Countless raptors spread their wings, slicing through the dense night mist as they circled above the dense forests. Since the pursuit order had been issued, the territories ruled by the 4 old demons had become a chaotic dance of demons. Powerful mutant creatures roamed everywhere, including a small number of humans. The silver radiance swirling around Qinming was completely absorbed into his body, and the rich medicinal fragrance permeated his being. His 7th awakening had begun. He could clearly feel the changes, wounds scabbing over, broken bones mending, his entire body burning hot as his flesh and blood seemed to be purified. Surrounded by auspicious light, his essence, qi, and spirit grew increasingly vigorous. Within his internal organs, clouds and mists billowed like immortal mist, and a vibrant life force was emerging, akin to the arrival of early spring when all things burst forth in competition. His broken bones were fusing and growing at an astonishing rate. At this pace, they would be fully healed even before his awakening was complete. Without the refreshing fragrance emanating from the silver heart, Qinming's situation was now far better than before. He activated harmonizing with the world, blending seamlessly into the dense forest under the cover of night. He had remained motionless for a quarter of an hour. But the tranquility was soon shattered. This region teemed with demons and monsters, and it wasn't long before a creature discovered him. It was a ram, as black as ink and towering over 10 meters tall, even larger than the fire scale lion. Its 2 horns were thick and rough, lacking any sharp edges. Qinming sensed danger immediately. Sure enough, this black ram was no ordinary beast. It emitted no demonic aura, relying solely on its physical strength to rampage through the forest, shattering massive trees in its path. Qinming suspected the ram had mastered Iron Shirt, its body enveloped in a black, impenetrable aura. It was ferociously powerful. Still undergoing awakening, with his bones barely rejoined, Qinming had no desire to confront such a formidable creature, fearing his bones might dislocate again. He turned to flee. Boom. The black ram shattered a massive boulder blocking its path with a single hoof strike. Its rough horns tore through ancient trees like paper, as if determined to pierce the very heavens. I am Yongding Tian. The ram bellowed. I've heard you possess the silver heart. Hand it over, and I'll spare you. I ate it. Qin Ming retorted. Yongding Tian pursued relentlessly. Transforming you will serve just as well. The medicinal effects will linger for a time. With a splash, Qin Ming plunged into a wide river. But after swimming only a few miles, a massive, 10-meter-long fish forced him back to the surface. Soon after, a mountain ape appeared, another colossal creature, standing 15 meters tall. Even without its heavenly light force, its innate spirit power far surpassed that of ordinary outer saints. Qin Ming had marked this mountain ape in his memory. He was being relentlessly pursued by the ape, its massive footfalls crashing down repeatedly, nearly crushing him several times. The ground fractured, trees snapped, and the ape swung a bone blade, fashioned from the rib of a giant beast, with earth-shattering force. Unwilling to engage and risk disrupting his healing bones, Qin Ming dove into a vast lake. He soon emerged on the opposite shore, grimacing and baring his teeth. The lake teemed with lightning eels, though fortunately their cultivation was relatively weak. Qin Ming spent the entire day fleeing for his life. Late that night, he finally found a moment of respite, enduring the stench as he hid inside the mouth of a colossal crocodile. He never imagined he would be reduced to such desperate measures for survival. Hunted by monstrous creatures, he had sought refuge in a swamp, coating himself in mud to lie low, only to encounter an outer saint-level crocodile. This time, his patience snapped. He charged into the crocodile's maw and unleashed his heavenly light force from within, obliterating its life force without leaving a visible wound. Lying in the crocodile's mouth, Qin Ming finally relaxed completely. The 6 Imperial Ancestral Court's assessment for core disciples. He murmured to himself. This time, the elder had divided the assessment grounds based on the disciples' cultivation levels. In the Awakening Realm, Qin Ming had ultimately faced formidable old demons like Black Peng, Fire Scale Lion, and Yongding Tian, whose power far surpassed that of ordinary outer saints. If he were to advance to the outer saint realm, would the next assessment place him in a region dominated by spirit field level beings, forcing him to confront creatures from the third great realm? That night, Qin Ming slept deeply, his body undergoing an astonishing transformation. Golden needles, guided by invisible threads, stitched and mended his wounds, while silver mud, like a potent great medicine, was applied across his entire body. Every injured part of Qin Ming, including his fractured bones, emitted faint cracking sounds as they were stitched back together, then nourished by the great medicine, accelerating their healing. The next morning, he awoke feeling invigorated, his condition better than ever before. Apart from the crocodile's mouth's wretched environment, he had no complaints. All his injuries had healed, his strength had increased, his senses were sharper, his heavenly light force was more concentrated, and his consciousness spiritual light and divine wisdom had deepened further. At this rate, my 7th awakening will be complete in another half-day. Now brimming with confidence, Qin Ming finally had his fractured bones fully healed, no longer hindering his combat abilities. He emerged from the crocodile's jaws and washed himself repeatedly in the clear pool. Thanks to his heavenly light body protection, he hadn't absorbed any of the creature's foul stench. Qin Ming roasted an electric eel and ate some wild fruits, his eyes flashing with cold resolve. He was already plotting his revenge. Yesterday had been utterly humiliating. Thinking of the old demons, he suspected the fire scale lion possessed a unique, extraordinary blood that could further strengthen his foundation. By morning, the demons and monsters had lost their fervor in hunting him. They likely believed he had fully absorbed the medicinal properties of the silver heart's blood and was now worthless to them. At noon, when the night's darkness was at its weakest, a thick fog blanketed the land of Divine Lament Plains. Qin Ming felt a surge of exhilaration as his 7th awakening was finally complete. Instinctively, he sensed that his foundation had once again slightly surpassed its previous limit. Yet even after acquiring 2 types of extraordinary blood and bolstering his foundation, the results weren't as dramatic as he'd imagined, only a marginal breakthrough beyond the limit. It seems that the foundation I established during my first awakening, with arms capable of wielding 1500 caddies of force, is exceptionally difficult to surpass. After all, none of the patriarch-level figures throughout history had ever achieved such a feat. After his 7th awakening, Qin Ming's physical strength had surpassed the upper limit of 10,500 jin, yet remained below 11,000 jin. Of course, this was merely his intuition, a rough estimate. To break through this limit and deepen my foundation, I need to find more extraordinary blood. Qin Ming realized that the land of Divine Lament Plains seemed unique, with creatures possessing extraordinary bloodlines being surprisingly common. At least, he had already discovered 3 such beings. Beyond the dramatic increase in his physical prowess and surging strength, the extraordinary light within his flesh had intensified. A swirling golden radiance now surrounded him, resembling the shattered remnants of a great sun mixed with luminous mist. This was an ability he had gained during his seventh awakening. Qinming took a deep breath, calming his mind. His cultivation was far from complete. In fact, the true qualitative transformation had only just begun. He glanced at the vast plain covered in dense forests and murmured, "What a perfect place to practice the Emu scripture." He sat cross-legged on the ground, circulating the technique. A refreshing energy immediately flowed through the area, causing the vegetation to rustle and a faint green aura to converge upon him. Having already mastered the Emu force, Qinming now began consuming the fallen fruit to enhance this force technique. Within the fallen fruit, the dense otherworldly heavenly light seemed almost liquid, pouring into Qinming's mouth with dazzling brilliance. Inside his body, it stirred violently, a force that would have overwhelmed ordinary mortals, their flesh cooked through. But Qinming endured. With each fallen fruit he consumed, his Emu force surged, until his entire body was enveloped in emerald light. Moreover, the forest resonated with him, channeling its life force into him. This was indeed an extraordinary technique, capable of prolonging life and elevating the essence of one's being. Emerald mist swirled around him, and luminous vapors shimmered as the forest's vital energy converged upon Qinming. The trees rustled like voices, as if communicating with him. Finally, Qinming's skin became as flawless and white as jade, while his hair transformed into strands of crystalline emerald, each strand shimmering like a mountain spirit. By consuming the fallen fruit and resonating with the forest, he had cultivated the Emu technique to a profound level, reaching the limits of his current physical form. The Emu scripture isn't just for nurturing life, its power is formidable. Qinming's palm glowed with green light as he gently struck the ground. With a thunderous boom, the earth shattered, the force penetrating deep into the subterranean depths. With a gentle flick of his hand, a surge of green heavenly light force struck a nearby boulder, instantly reducing it to dust. When he ceased circulating the Emu scripture, his hair reverted to its natural black. Next, he began practicing the Wind Thunder Force, a technique he had obtained from the Weasel's Wind Thunder Sword manual. He valued this technique immensely, having long sought to master the power of lightning. Though this wasn't pure lightning, it was intertwined with wind, Qinming was already satisfied. The Wind Thunder Sword appeared to be a secret technique of a great sect, and its force technique was equally astonishing. Lightning crackled around Qinming, accompanied by gusts of wind force. With a casual punch, thunderous roars echoed through the air. Most importantly, its destructive power was immense. He then integrated the lightning force from the Five Elements Palace. While not a profound lightning technique, it was still remarkable. Following this, Qinming systematically enhanced each of his heavenly light force technique forces: minor yang force, windfire force, metal severing force, dragon claw force, bright light force, and jade radiance force. Guided by the silk book's technique force, he fused them all into a unified whole, returned to one. Yesterday, he had faced a near-death experience, hunted relentlessly by demons and monsters, as if he had fallen into an abyss. Now, after his seventh awakening, having integrated these diverse force techniques, he had once again ascended to the heavens. Qinming had fused 9 force techniques at once, an unprecedented feat. Most of these techniques were obtained from Luofu Immortal Mountain while helping Li Qingyu retrieve near immortal treasures. In truth, he still had 3 heavenly light force techniques left to upgrade and fuse, but he had already consumed all the fallen fruit. Meng Xinghai had prepared many bags of fallen fruit for him, yet even that supply had been exhausted. This was mainly because the force techniques he had fused this time were exceptionally powerful, requiring immense energy consumption. Moreover, Qinming genuinely couldn't stomach any more fallen fruit. For the first time, he felt he had reached his limit, temporarily, full. If he forced himself to eat more, he feared he might explode on the spot. Having now fused the 4 great extraordinary techniques, he had mastered a total of 27 heavenly light force techniques. When Qinming rose to his feet, the unified heavenly light force surged through his body, undergoing a clear qualitative transformation and becoming significantly stronger than before. This heavenly light force shone brilliantly, enveloping him in an extraterrestrial celestial radiance, as if he were clad in sacred battle armor. He resembled a young deity emerging from the dazzling sun, his every movement exuding transcendence and a formidable aura. Time to set out, Qinming said, grasping his jade iron sword and striding alone across the land of divine lament plains. Blank. End of chapter. Subscribe to the MTL World at Malworld 1 YouTube channel.